Welcome in, fellow Potterheads. Tonight, beneath the starry ceiling of the Great Hall, we will be going over magical tales from the wizarding world to guide you gently into the realm of dreams. Before we disappear behind the veil of dreams, take a moment to cast your support spell, tap the like button, and join our magical community by subscribing. Also, I'm curious what time it is in your corner of the wizarding world. Whether you're watching from California, Hogsmeade, or London, share your location in the comments below. Your participation will be greatly appreciated and helps our magical community grow stronger. Now, the time for incantations has passed. Dim your lights, find your most comfortable position, and prepare to be transported to the world of witchcraft and wizardry as we begin tonight's magical tales. Chapter 1. The Magic of Arctic Magical Communities. Long before the Ministry of Magic established its formal outposts, long before wizarding governments drew their careful boundaries across maps, magical communities had already taken root in the most remote and inhospitable corners of our world. Among these hardy settlements, none capture the imagination quite like those that flourished in the vast white expanses of the Arctic regions, where ice and snow stretch endlessly beneath dancing auroras and the very air shimmers with ancient magic. Picture, if you will, walking across a landscape so pristine and untouched that your footsteps seem to echo through time itself. The snow beneath your boots crunches with a sound that resonates differently here than in ordinary places, for this is snow that has been touched by magic for countless generations. Each crystal contains within it the whispered secrets of spells cast in desperation against the killing cold, the laughter of wizarding children sledding down enchanted hills that never melt, and the quiet conversations of elders who have watched the northern lights dance for over a century. The Arctic magical communities developed in isolation, far from the political machinations and social hierarchies that shaped their southern counterparts. Here, survival demanded cooperation above all else, and magic became not a tool for individual advancement, but a collective shield against nature's most formidable challenges. These communities learned to work with the harsh environment rather than against it, discovering that the extreme cold and endless winter nights possessed magical properties that existed nowhere else on Earth. In these settlements, you would find homes carved directly into mountainsides and reinforced with warming charms, so powerful they could maintain tropical temperatures even when the outside air reached depths that would freeze ordinary fire solid. The windows of these dwellings were not made of glass, but of ice so pure and magically treated that it became transparent as crystal while remaining stronger than steel. Through these frozen panes, residents could watch the aurora borealis paint the sky in colors that seemed to respond to their emotions, growing brighter during moments of joy and shifting to deeper, more mysterious hues during times of contemplation. The magic practiced in these communities took on characteristics as unique as the environment itself. Spells that might produce mere sparks in temperate climates would burst into magnificent displays of light and warmth in the Arctic air. Potions brewed with water drawn from ancient glaciers possessed potency that amazed even the most experienced southern potioneers. The very act of casting magic seemed amplified by the crisp, thin air and the endless silence that surrounded these remote settlements. Food preservation, typically a complex magical undertaking, became beautifully simple in these frozen lands. Natural ice cellars, enhanced with stasis charms, could keep provisions fresh for decades. More remarkably, certain magical plants and herbs that grew in these regions possessed properties that increased in strength the longer they remained frozen, leading to the development of entirely new branches of magical herbology and potion-making that could only be practiced in these extreme conditions. The inhabitants of Arctic magical communities developed their own unique traditions and customs, shaped by the rhythm of endless winter nights and brief, brilliant summers. Their celebrations centered around the return of the sun after months of darkness, elaborate festivals of light that combined ancient magic with heartfelt gratitude for warmth and illumination. During these celebrations, entire communities would work together to create magnificent ice sculptures that moved and danced through magical animation, telling stories of their ancestors and the spirits they believed watched over them from the aurora-painted skies. Children born in these communities grew up with an intuitive understanding of cold weather magic that would take southern wizards years to master. They learned to call warming flames that burned without fuel, to craft ice that would never melt, and to communicate across vast frozen distances using spells that rode the Arctic winds like invisible messengers. Their magical education included lessons that existed nowhere else: how to navigate by reading the patterns in magical aurora displays, how to brew potions using ingredients that could only be harvested during the brief Arctic summer, and how to recognize the difference between ordinary weather and the approach of magical storms that could last for weeks. The relationship between these communities and magical creatures took on special significance in the Arctic regions. Here, they shared their territory with phoenixes, whose flames burned blue in the extreme cold, with ice dragons, whose breath could create protective barriers around entire settlements, and with mystical Arctic foxes, whose white fur sparkled with natural magic, and whose presence was considered a sign of good fortune and protection from the worst winter storms. Perhaps most remarkably, these Arctic communities developed forms of magic that seemed to slow time itself. During the darkest months of winter, when the sun disappeared entirely below the horizon, residents would enter a state of magical hibernation that allowed them to survive on minimal resources, while maintaining their mental faculties through shared dreams and collective meditation. These dream states became repositories of community knowledge, where elders could pass down wisdom, stories, and magical techniques to younger generations through experiences so vivid they felt more real than waking life. The architecture of Arctic magical settlements reflected both practical necessity and aesthetic beauty in ways that would astound visitors from warmer climates. Buildings grew organically from the landscape, their walls formed from magically compressed snow that became harder than stone, but retained the ability to breathe and adjust to changing conditions. Roof lines curved and flowed like frozen waves, designed to work with the wind rather than against it, while interior spaces opened into vast caverns of warmth and light that seemed to exist in defiance of the natural laws governing the world above. These communities also developed unique systems of governance and social organization. Leadership positions rotated based on the seasons and the specific challenges each period brought. The best ice workers might lead during construction seasons, while those most skilled in aurora reading would guide the community during the darkest months. This fluid approach to authority meant that everyone had opportunities to contribute their unique skills and knowledge to the community's survival and prosperity. The magical innovations that emerged from Arctic communities eventually found their way to the broader wizarding world, though often in modified forms that lost some of their original elegance and power. Warming charms, as we know them today, trace their origins to the sophisticated temperature control magic developed in these frozen settlements. Similarly, many of the preservation techniques used in modern magical households began as survival necessities in places where a failed warming spell could mean the difference between life and death. Trade between Arctic communities and their southern neighbors developed along routes that followed the migration patterns of magical creatures, particularly the great ice bears whose thick fur provided material for cloaks that could maintain their wearer's body temperature in conditions that would challenge even the most powerful warming charms. These trading relationships brought new ideas and techniques to both regions, creating a gradual exchange of knowledge that enriched magical understanding across the globe. The spiritual life of Arctic magical communities centered around their relationship with the forces of winter and the cycles of light and darkness that governed their world. They developed meditation practices that drew power from the stillness of the frozen landscape, healing techniques that used the purifying properties of Arctic winds, and divination methods based on reading the patterns formed by blowing snow and the colors that appeared in the northern lights during different emotional and spiritual states. Even today, as modern magical transportation makes these remote communities more accessible, they maintain much of their unique character and independence. Visitors often speak of the profound sense of peace that settles over them in these places, where the absence of the constant noise and bustle of magical civilization allows for a deeper connection with magic itself. The silence here is not empty, but full of possibility, pregnant with the potential for magic that exists in its purest, most elemental form. As our exploration of these remarkable Arctic magical communities draws to a close, we're left to contemplate the extraordinary adaptability and resilience of the wizarding spirit. In conditions that would challenge the most resourceful Muggle expeditions, magical families not only survived, but created thriving, beautiful communities that pushed the boundaries of what magic could accomplish. Their innovations in cold weather magic, their sustainable approaches to resource management, and their deep integration with the natural magical properties of their environment offer lessons that remain relevant even in our modern magical world. In the gentle quiet of this moment, as we imagine the aurora borealis dancing across an endless expanse of magical snow, consider this: what hidden strengths might emerge within yourself if you were called upon to create magic in a place where survival itself depended on your ability to work in harmony with forces far greater than any individual wizard. Chapter 2. The Development of Self-Ironing Clothes. In the quiet corners of magical history, where innovation meets necessity, few inventions have brought as much daily comfort to wizarding households as the remarkable development of self-ironing clothes. Picture yourself stepping into a wardrobe where every garment hangs in perfect condition, free from wrinkles and creases, maintaining their crisp appearance through magic so subtle and elegant that it seems like the natural order of things. Story of self-ironing clothes begins not in the grand workshops of famous magical inventors, but in the humble laundry rooms of busy wizarding families, where the endless cycle of washing, drying, and pressing magical robes had become a burden that seemed to grow heavier with each passing generation. Imagine the frustration of a working witch, returning home after a long day at the Ministry of Magic, faced with a pile of robes that had somehow managed to wrinkle themselves into impossible configurations during a simple flue journey. It was in the early 1600s that Cordelia Straightfold, a seamstress from a small village outside Canterbury, first experimented with embedding permanent smoothing charms directly into fabric fibers during the weaving process. Her initial attempts were clumsy affairs that resulted in robes so rigidly smooth they could barely bend, making movement difficult and comfort impossible. Yet Cordelia persisted, driven by her vision of clothing that could maintain its appearance without constant magical intervention. The breakthrough came when she realized that the magic needed to work with the natural properties of the fabric rather than against them. Instead of forcing fibers into perfect alignment, her refined enchantments encouraged them to return to their optimal position after being disturbed. Picture threads that possessed a kind of magical memory, each one remembering exactly how it should lie in relation to its neighbors, gently pulling wrinkles smooth through an almost imperceptible magical tension that felt like the fabric itself was breathing. The process of creating these enchanted garments required extraordinary precision and patience. Each thread had to be individually treated with a diluted solution of extracted essence from the rare smoothleaf plant, a magical herb whose leaves never showed signs of wilting or creasing even in the harshest weather conditions. The weaving process itself became a form of moving meditation, with the seamstress maintaining a steady flow of gentle magic through her fingertips as she worked, embedding the smoothing enchantments so deeply into the fabric's structure that they became an integral part of its magical signature. Early adopters of self-ironing clothes discovered unexpected benefits beyond mere convenience. The gentle, constant magical activity within the fabric seemed to create a subtle warming effect, making these garments particularly popular among wizards who worked in cold environments or spent long hours outdoors. More surprisingly, the smoothing magic appeared to have a calming effect on the wearer's emotional state, as if the orderly arrangement of the fabric fibers somehow promoted a sense of inner tranquility and confidence. The magical theory behind self-ironing clothes relies on the principle of harmonic resonance between enchanted threads. Each fiber vibrates at a frequency so subtle, it remains below the threshold of conscious perception, creating a network of synchronized magical energy that flows throughout the entire garment. When wrinkles form, they disrupt this harmonic pattern, triggering a gentle corrective response that gradually smooths the disturbance until the fabric returns to its optimal configuration. As word of Cordelia's innovation spread throughout the wizarding world, other magical tailors and seamstresses began developing their own variations on the self-ironing technique. Some experimented with using phoenix down woven into the fabric to create garments that not only remained wrinkle-free, but also maintained a perfect temperature, regardless of the surrounding environment. Others incorporated threads spun from unicorn tail hair, resulting in clothes that seemed to glow with a soft ethereal light while maintaining their pristine appearance. The production of self-ironing clothes became increasingly sophisticated as generations of magical craftspeople refined the techniques. Master tailors developed specialized looms that could maintain the precise magical field strength needed throughout the weaving process. They created detailed charts mapping the optimal thread tension and magical saturation levels for different types of fabric, from lightweight silk dress robes to heavy winter cloaks designed for use in harsh weather conditions. Different regions of the wizarding world contributed their own innovations to the art of self-ironing garment construction. Irish magical tailors discovered that incorporating threads dyed with extracts from four-leaf clovers not only enhanced the smoothing enchantments, but also provided the wearer with subtle protection against minor hexes and jinxes. Italian wizarding fashion houses developed techniques for creating self-ironing fabrics with elaborate patterns that seemed to shift and move subtly while maintaining perfect structural integrity. The quality and durability of self-ironing enchantments became a mark of distinction among wizarding tailors. The finest examples could maintain their smoothing properties for decades, even surviving multiple generations of wear and careful magical maintenance. These heirloom garments were often passed down through wizarding families, their enchantments growing stronger and more refined with age, like fine wine developing complexity in the cellar. The integration of self-ironing technology into everyday wizarding life created unexpected social changes. Suddenly, even wizards from modest economic backgrounds could maintain the crisp, professional appearance traditionally associated with wealth and status. This democratization of impeccable dress contributed to subtle shifts in wizarding society, where personal merit and magical ability became more important than one's ability to afford perfectly maintained formal robes. Educational institutions quickly recognized the practical benefits of self-ironing school uniforms. Hogwarts, Beauxbatons, and Durmstrang all eventually adopted self-ironing house robes, discovering that students spent less time worrying about their appearance and more time focusing on their studies. Parents appreciated the reduced burden of maintaining their children's school clothes, while teachers found that classroom discipline improved when students felt confident about their appearance. The magical maintenance required for self-ironing clothes proved surprisingly minimal. Unlike other enchanted items that needed regular recharging or professional servicing, these garments seemed to draw sustenance from the ambient magical energy present in any wizarding household. The very act of wearing them provided enough magical stimulation to keep the enchantments active and healthy, creating a symbiotic relationship between the garment and its owner. Advanced practitioners of garment enchantment eventually developed specialized variations for specific professions and lifestyles. Oro robes incorporated self-ironing enchantments that could rapidly adapt to extreme conditions, maintaining their pristine appearance even after intense magical combat or extended fieldwork. Quidditch uniforms featured enhanced versions that could smooth themselves almost instantaneously, ensuring that team presentations maintained their professional appearance regardless of weather conditions or the vigorous physical activity of the sport. The study of self-ironing enchantments also contributed to broader advances in magical theory, particularly in the field of sustained charm work and magical energy conservation. Researchers discovered that the harmonic resonance principles underlying these garments could be applied to other forms of household magic, leading to innovations in self-cleaning dishes, self-organizing bookshelves, and even self-maintaining magical gardens. Some of the most elegant applications of self-ironing technology appeared in formal wizarding wear designed for special occasions. Wedding robes enchanted with these charms could maintain their perfect appearance throughout lengthy ceremonial proceedings, while dress robes for ministry galas incorporated subtle variations that actually improved their appearance over the course of an evening, becoming more lustrous and refined as the magical energy built up from extended wear. The psychological impact of wearing perfectly maintained clothing proved more significant than early innovators had anticipated. Wizards reported increased confidence, improved posture, and a general sense of readiness to face whatever challenges the day might bring. This phenomenon became known among magical tailors as the straightfold effect, honoring the original inventor, whose simple desire for convenience had created something far more profound. Modern self-ironing clothes represent the culmination of centuries of magical innovation and refinement. Today's garments incorporate additional enchantments for stain resistance, odor prevention, and even minor protective qualities, all while maintaining the elegant simplicity of the original smoothing charms. The magic has become so seamlessly integrated that many young wizards take it for granted, never experiencing the daily struggle with wrinkled robes that motivated the original innovation. As we reflect on this remarkable marriage of practicality and magical artistry, we see how the development of self-ironing clothes represents something larger than mere convenience. It demonstrates the wizarding world's commitment to using magic not just for grand gestures and dramatic effects, but for improving the simple, everyday aspects of life that contribute to dignity, comfort, and personal confidence. In the soft rustling of perfectly smooth fabric and the subtle warmth of enchanted threads, we find a reminder that true magical innovation often begins with the recognition of ordinary problems and the patient dedication to solve them elegantly. As you consider the gentle magic woven into every thread of these remarkable garments, what seemingly mundane aspect of daily life might benefit from a touch of magical innovation and thoughtful care? Chapter 3. The Ancient Wizarding Villages of Costa Rica. Hidden beneath the emerald canopy of Central America's most biodiverse nation, where mist-shrouded mountains meet volcanic slopes and pristine beaches, kiss two different oceans, lie some of the most enchanting and ancient wizarding settlements ever discovered. Imagine yourself walking along a narrow path through the cloud forest, where every breath of humid air carries the whisper of spells cast centuries before Columbus ever dreamed of distant shores, and where the very trees seem to hum with accumulated magic from generations of careful cultivation. The wizarding villages of Costa Rica developed in harmony with one of the planet's most magically saturated environments, where the abundance of life force created conditions unlike anywhere else in the wizarding world. Here, magic flowed as naturally as the morning mist that rolled down from the mountains, and the indigenous magical communities learned to work with this energy rather than attempting to control or redirect it for their own purposes. The earliest of these settlements, known to its inhabitants as Bosque Sussurro, or Whispering Forest, was established sometime in the 8th century by a confederation of magical families who had traveled from various parts of the Americas. They chose their location with extraordinary care, selecting a valley where 3 powerful ley lines converged beneath a grove of trees, so ancient that their magical aura could be felt from miles away. Picture these massive cecropia and strangler fig trees, their trunks wider than houses, their canopies so dense they created a perpetual twilight that glowed with bioluminescent fungi and the soft radiance of natural magic. The architecture of these villages reflected both practical necessity and deep respect for the living forest that surrounded them. Rather than clearing land for construction, the wizarding builders learned to shape their homes around and within the existing trees, creating dwellings that seemed to grow organically from the forest floor. Walls were woven from living vines that continued to bloom and fruit even after being incorporated into the structure, while roofs were formed from broad leaves that had been magically enhanced to become waterproof, while maintaining their ability to photosynthesize and provide oxygen to the inhabitants below. The magical practices that developed in these rainforest communities centered around the concept of symbiosis with the natural world. Unlike their European counterparts, who often viewed magic as a tool to be wielded over nature, Costa Rican wizards saw themselves as partners in an intricate dance of energy exchange. Their spells worked by asking rather than commanding, by offering rather than taking, creating a magical tradition that was both incredibly powerful and remarkably sustainable. Potions brewing in these tropical settings took on characteristics that amazed visiting wizards from other continents. The incredible biodiversity meant that ingredients unknown to the rest of the wizarding world grew wild in abundance. Healers could harvest the essence of over 40 different types of orchids, each with its own unique magical properties, from a single morning's walk through the forest. The magical butterflies that inhabited these regions carried pollen infused with transformation magic so potent that a single wing scale could power enhancement charms for weeks. The relationship between these wizarding communities and the magical creatures of the rainforest created an ecosystem of unprecedented complexity and beauty. Quetzals with feathers that shifted color to reflect the emotional state of nearby humans nested in trees that had been carefully tended by wizard families for generations. Jaguars with the ability to phase between the physical and spiritual worlds served as guardians and guides for the villages, while troops of howler monkeys, whose calls could carry magical messages across hundreds of miles, maintained communication networks throughout the region. Daily life in these forest villages followed rhythms dictated by the natural world rather than artificial schedules. Families woke with the dawn chorus of magical birds, whose songs had the power to inspire prophetic dreams and clear mental fog. Children learned their first spells by observing the way. Flowers opened to the morning light and closed with the coming of dusk, understanding that magic was not separate from life, but woven into its very fabric. The educational system developed by these communities emphasized understanding over memorization, experience over theory. Young wizards learned herbology by tending gardens where every plant was both a lesson and a living partner. They studied divination by reading the patterns made by falling rain on broad leaves and the movements of clouds across the forest canopy. Transfiguration came naturally in an environment where the boundary between plant and animal, earth and water, seemed to shift and flow with the changing seasons. Water played a particularly significant role in Costa Rican wizarding magic. The constant humidity and frequent rains created an environment where water-based spells could be maintained with minimal effort, leading to innovations in weather magic, cleansing rituals, and healing practices that used the purifying properties of rainwater that had been filtered through miles of magical forest canopy. Waterfalls became sacred sites where wizards could meditate under cascading streams that carried the accumulated magical energy of entire watersheds. The spiritual traditions of these villages reflected their deep integration with the cycles of the rainforest. Ceremonies followed the rhythms of wet and dry seasons, celebrating the return of migrating magical creatures and honoring the spirits that were believed to inhabit the most ancient trees. The village elders served not just as magical authorities, but as keepers of ecological wisdom, ensuring that the community's needs remained in balance with the forest's capacity to provide. Trade between these rainforest communities and the outside wizarding world developed slowly and selectively. The villagers were generous with their knowledge of sustainable magic and healing techniques, but they guarded carefully against influences that might disrupt their delicate relationship with the forest. When they did trade, it was often in the form of magical services rather than physical goods, healing ceremonies for visiting wizards, divination sessions that drew on the wisdom of the forest spirits, or blessing rituals that could enhance the magical properties of items brought from other regions. The cuisine that developed in these communities reflected both the abundance of the rainforest and the magical enhancement techniques that had been perfected over centuries. Fruits that grew wild in the forest were cultivated to enhance their natural magical properties, creating varieties that could provide sustenance for weeks from a single meal or grant temporary abilities, like enhanced hearing or the capacity to communicate with specific types of magical creatures. Artisanal magic in these villages reached heights of sophistication that impressed even the most accomplished European crafts wizards. Weavers created fabrics from fibers that changed color and pattern to match their wearer's mood and environment, providing both beauty and practical camouflage. Woodworkers carved instruments from trees that had been magically enhanced while still growing, resulting in musical tools that could influence weather patterns and emotional states with their melodies. The preservation of magical knowledge in these communities relied on living libraries, trees that had been specially cultivated to store memories and information in their cellular structure. Entire histories of magical techniques, genealogies of important families, and records of significant events were encoded in the growth patterns of these remarkable trees, creating archives that could be accessed by those who knew the proper communion spells. The healing traditions that emerged from these rainforest villages represented some of the most advanced magical medicine ever developed. Healers learned to work with the body's natural energy flows, using techniques that enhanced rather than overrode the patient's own healing abilities. They developed therapeutic practices that incorporated the emotional and spiritual dimensions of illness, recognizing that true healing required attention to the whole person rather than just the physical symptoms. Climate magic reached extraordinary levels of sophistication in these tropical settings. Villagers could create localized weather patterns to protect their crops, summon refreshing breezes during the hottest parts of the day, and even temporarily part the clouds to allow starlight to reach specific locations for astronomical observations. This weather work was always performed with careful attention to the broader ecological impact, ensuring that local modifications didn't disrupt the larger patterns that sustained the rainforest ecosystem. The festivals and celebrations of these communities were legendary for their beauty and magical power. During the peak of the rainy season, entire villages would participate in ceremonies that transformed falling raindrops into temporary works of art, each drop becoming a tiny prism that split moonlight into rainbow patterns that danced through the forest canopy. These celebrations could last for days, with different families contributing their own magical specialties to create communal experiences of unprecedented wonder and joy. As European wizarding influences began to reach Central America, many of these ancient villages faced difficult decisions about how to maintain their traditional ways while adapting to a changing magical world. Some communities chose isolation, using powerful concealment charms to hide themselves from outside contact. Others selectively adopted useful innovations while carefully screening out influences that might disrupt their ecological balance. The legacy of these remarkable communities continues to influence modern wizarding practices, particularly in the fields of sustainable magic, ecological healing, and harmonious human-nature relationships. Their techniques for living lightly on the land, while maintaining high magical standards, offer models that remain relevant as the wizarding world grapples with its own environmental challenges. Modern visitors to the few Costa Rican wizarding villages that still welcome outsiders often speak of being profoundly changed by the experience. They describe a sense of coming home to a way of life they never knew they had lost, of rediscovering magic not as a tool for imposing one's will upon the world, but as a means of participating more fully in the intricate web of relationships that connect all living things. As we imagine the gentle rustle of enchanted leaves and the distant calls of magical creatures echoing through these ancient forest homes, we're reminded that wisdom often comes not from conquest but from careful listening, not from taking but from giving, not from standing apart but from finding our place within the greater symphony of life. In the soft green light that filters through these magical forest canopies, where every breath carries the essence of countless lives, lived in harmony with the natural world. Consider this: what would it mean to approach your own magical practice, not as a master of forces to be controlled, but as a participant in relationships to be nurtured and honored? Chapter 4: The Different Types of Magical Communication. Across the vast distances that separate magical communities, where mountains rise like sleeping giants and oceans stretch beyond the horizon, the need to share thoughts, emotions, and urgent messages has inspired some of the most ingenious magical innovations in wizarding history. Tonight, let us explore the fascinating world of magical communication, where words travel on invisible wings, thoughts flow through enchanted networks, and the very air becomes a carrier of intimate conversations between hearts separated by continents. The most fundamental form of magical communication traces its origins to the early discovery that magic itself creates a kind of ethereal network connecting all practitioners. Imagine sitting quietly in your favorite chair and feeling, somewhere at the edge of your consciousness, the gentle pulse of magical energy from every other witch and wizard in the world. This background hum of collective magical activity became the foundation for the first communication spells, which learned to modulate this energy to carry specific messages from one practitioner to another. The ancient Patronus message, perhaps the most elegant form of magical communication ever devised, transforms the caster's happiest memory into a shimmering guardian that can traverse any distance to find its intended recipient. Picture a silvery stag bounding across darkened countryside, its ethereal form passing through physical obstacles as easily as moonlight passes through glass, carrying within its magical essence not just words, but the very emotional resonance of the sender's heart. The Patronus messenger connects souls as much as minds, allowing recipients to sense not only what was said, but the depth of feeling behind the message. Owl Post, while seemingly simple, represents one of the most sophisticated partnerships between magical and non-magical creatures ever achieved. These remarkable birds possess an innate understanding of magical signatures that allows them to locate recipients anywhere in the world, guided by an invisible map of magical energy that ordinary creatures cannot perceive. Watch an owl preparing for a long journey, and you'll notice the moment when its eyes take on that distant, focused expression as it attunes itself to the magical signature of its destination, plotting a course that follows ley lines and magical currents rather than simple geography. The development of the Flu network transformed not just communication but the very concept of distance in the wizarding world. Imagine the revolutionary moment when the first wizard realized that the magical flames dancing in their fireplace could serve as a portal for more than just transportation, that voices could travel through the green fire, carrying conversations across networks of connected hearths. The Flu communication system works by creating temporary magical tunnels through the flame dimension, allowing voices to travel instantaneously between any two connected fireplaces while maintaining the intimate quality of face-to-face conversation. Two-way mirrors represent perhaps the most personal form of magical communication, creating permanent magical bonds between paired objects that reflect not just images but emotions and intentions. These mirrors work by establishing what magical theorists call a sympathetic resonance between their silvered surfaces, creating a connection so intimate that experienced users can sense their communication partner's presence even when the mirror isn't actively being used. The magic embedded in these mirrors deepens over time, growing stronger with each conversation until the paired mirrors become almost like magical extensions of their user's consciousness. The development of howlers introduced an entirely different approach to magical messaging, one designed to carry not just information but the full emotional intensity of the sender's feelings. These scarlet letters pulse with contained energy, growing warm to the touch as they await opening, their magical envelope barely containing the explosive force of the emotions within. When released, a howler creates a temporary magical construct of the sender's voice, amplified to several times its normal volume and infused with such emotional authenticity that recipients experience not just the words, but the full impact of the sender's anger, disappointment, or urgent concern. Secret communication methods developed by resistance movements and underground organizations pushed the boundaries of magical messaging in fascinating directions. The Order of the Phoenix perfected techniques for embedding messages in everyday objects, creating communication networks that remained invisible to even the most sophisticated magical detection methods. A simple matchbox might carry an urgent warning, while a seemingly ordinary book could contain entire conversations encoded in the spacing between letters or the patterns of wear on its pages. Magical newspapers and periodicals developed their own unique forms of communication, creating moving photographs that could convey information through gestures and expressions that changed based on current events. The magical ink used in these publications maintains a connection to its source, allowing photographs to update in real time and headlines to shift as new information becomes available. This creates a form of communication that bridges the gap between personal messaging and mass media, allowing information to flow dynamically between individual readers and the broader magical community. The most sophisticated magical communication systems incorporate elements of telepathy, though true mind-to-mind contact requires exceptional skill and intimate familiarity between the communicating parties. Advanced practitioners can establish what are known as mental bridges, temporary connections that allow for the direct sharing of thoughts, emotions, and even sensory experiences. These bridges require perfect trust between participants, as they create a level of intimacy that goes far beyond ordinary conversation, allowing communicators to share not just ideas, but the actual experience of thinking and feeling. Emergency communication spells represent some of the most powerful and draining magic in the communicator's arsenal. The protean charm, when applied to a group of objects, creates an instant communication network where changes to one item immediately manifest in all connected pieces. This allows for rapid coordination during crisis situations, though the magical energy required to maintain such connections over long periods can be enormous. The dark mark, while serving sinister purposes, demonstrated the effectiveness of such emergency communication systems in coordinating large groups across vast distances. Magical communication across species boundaries opened entirely new realms of possibility for wizarding society. Parcel tongue represents the most famous example of interspecies magical communication, where the speaker's magical ability creates a direct neural connection with serpentine consciousness, allowing for conversation that transcends the normal barriers between human and animal cognition. Similar abilities exist for communication with other magical creatures, though they require specialized training and often genetic predisposition. The art of message encoding in magical communication developed sophisticated techniques for ensuring privacy and security. Invisible inks that respond only to specific magical signatures, cipher spells that scramble text until activated by the proper countercharm, and illusion magic that makes messages appear as entirely different communications, all serve to protect sensitive information. Some of the most advanced encoding techniques create messages that literally cease to exist if opened by unauthorized individuals, ensuring that intercepted communications provide no useful information to potential adversaries. Long-distance magical communication faces unique challenges related to magical interference and signal degradation. Messages traveling through areas of high magical activity may become distorted or delayed, while regions with low magical saturation can cause communication spells to fail entirely. Experienced magical communicators learn to recognize these environmental factors and adjust their techniques accordingly, sometimes routing messages through intermediate magical focal points to maintain clarity over extreme distances. The emotional dimension of magical communication adds layers of complexity and meaning that have no equivalent in mundane forms of contact. Magical messages often carry subtle emotional resonances that allow recipients to sense the sender's true feelings regardless of the actual words used. This emotional transparency makes magical communication particularly effective for maintaining close relationships across great distances, as the magical connection preserves the full emotional context that might be lost in purely verbal or written messages. Collective communication magic allows large groups to share information simultaneously, creating temporary magical networks that connect dozens or even hundreds of participants. These group communication spells require careful coordination and tremendous magical energy, but they enable rapid dissemination of information during emergencies or large-scale magical events. The magical energy required for such communication scales exponentially with the number of participants, making them practical only for the most critical situations. The study of magical communication theory has revealed fascinating insights into the nature of consciousness and magical energy. Communication spells appear to work by creating temporary extensions of the caster's magical aura, stretching these energy fields across vast distances to establish connection with the recipient's own magical presence. This suggests that all magical communication ultimately relies on the fundamental interconnectedness of magical consciousness, supporting ancient theories that all magic users share some form of collective magical awareness. Modern developments in magical communication continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, with researchers exploring applications that could revolutionize wizarding society. Experimental techniques for storing and replaying magical communications, promise to create permanent archives of important conversations, while theoretical work on quantum magical entanglement suggests the possibility of instantaneous communication regardless of distance or magical interference. As we consider the remarkable variety and sophistication of magical communication methods, we see how the fundamental human need for connection has driven some of the most creative applications of magical energy. From the simple elegance of an owl carrying a letter to the complex intimacy of shared consciousness, these communication techniques remind us that magic serves not just practical purposes, but deeply emotional and social needs. In the gentle glow of magical flames dancing in hearths around the world, carrying voices across impossible distances, and connecting hearts separated by geography, but united by bonds stronger than physical space, we find a beautiful reminder of the power of communication to transcend all barriers. As you imagine your own voice traveling on magical currents to reach someone dear to you, what message would you choose to send across the vast network of magical connections that bind the wizarding world together? Chapter 5. The Wizarding View on Magic and Intelligence. In the quiet halls of magical learning, where ancient wisdom mingles with the eager curiosity of young minds, the relationship between magic and intelligence has been contemplated, debated, and explored for countless generations. Settle into this exploration of how the wizarding world understands the intricate dance between magical ability and the many forms of intelligence that shape both spellcasting prowess and the deeper wisdom needed to use magic responsibly and effectively. The wizarding world's understanding of intelligence extends far beyond the simple accumulation of facts or the ability to perform complex calculations. Here, intelligence is viewed as a multifaceted jewel, each surface reflecting a different aspect of magical capability and understanding. Picture yourself walking through the corridors of Hogwarts, observing how students from different houses excel in remarkably different ways, yet each demonstrates their own unique form of magical intelligence that contributes to their overall development as witches and wizards. Analytical intelligence, the type most easily measured through traditional examinations, represents only one dimension of magical capability. Students who excel in subjects like arithmancy and ancient runes demonstrate this form of intelligence, using logical reasoning and pattern recognition to decode the mathematical relationships underlying complex spells and to translate the symbolic languages that encode magical knowledge. These students often become the theoretical researchers and magical innovators who push the boundaries of what magic can accomplish through careful study and methodical experimentation. Creative intelligence manifests in the wizarding world through those who can envision new applications for existing spells, who can adapt magical techniques to novel situations, and who can invent entirely new forms of magical expression. Consider the magical inventors whose creative insights have given us everything from self-stirring cauldrons to the complex enchantments that make Quidditch possible. This form of intelligence requires not just knowledge but imagination, the ability to see possibilities where others see only limitations. Emotional intelligence proves crucial in many areas of magical practice, particularly in subjects like care of magical creatures and in the delicate art of dealing with magical beings who possess their own complex emotional lives. Wizards with high emotional intelligence can sense the moods and intentions of magical creatures, can navigate the intricate social dynamics of magical communities, and can understand how their own emotional state affects their magical abilities. They recognize that magic is not merely a technical skill, but an expression of the whole person, including their emotional depth and maturity. Practical intelligence shows itself in those who excel at herbology, potions, and other hands-on magical disciplines that require not just theoretical knowledge, but also intuitive understanding of how magical forces interact in real-world situations. These students might struggle with written examinations, but demonstrate remarkable ability when working directly with magical materials, understanding through touch and experience what others learn only through study. Their intelligence is embodied, expressed through skilled hands and keen observation rather than abstract reasoning. Social intelligence plays a vital role in magical communities, where cooperation and trust often mean the difference between successful spellcasting and dangerous magical accidents. Students who possess this form of intelligence become natural leaders, able to coordinate group magical efforts, to mediate conflicts between different magical communities, and to build the bridges of understanding that allow diverse magical traditions to learn from one another. They understand that magic is fundamentally communal, strengthened by connections between practitioners. Intuitive intelligence represents perhaps the most mysterious aspect of magical capability, encompassing those sudden insights and flashes of understanding that seem to come from beyond rational thought. Divination, while often dismissed by more academically minded wizards, requires this form of intelligence, as do many aspects of advanced magical healing and the subtle arts of magical detection. Students who possess strong intuitive intelligence often seem to know things they couldn't possibly have learned through conventional study, drawing on deeper sources of magical wisdom. The relationship between magical power and intelligence reveals itself to be far more complex than simple correlation. Some of the most magically powerful wizards in history possessed only modest academic intelligence, while some of the greatest magical theorists struggled with practical spellcasting. This suggests that magical ability and intelligence operate on different levels, with each enhancing the other, but neither being entirely dependent on the other for effectiveness. Magical intelligence appears to develop and deepen through practice and experience, rather than remaining fixed throughout a wizard's life. Young wizards often demonstrate remarkable raw ability, but lack the wisdom and understanding needed to use their power effectively. As they mature, their magical intelligence grows not just through formal education, but through the accumulation of experiences that teach them about the consequences of magical choices and the responsibilities that come with magical ability. The measurement of magical intelligence presents unique challenges that have puzzled magical educators for centuries. Traditional examinations can assess certain types of magical knowledge and skill, but they often fail to capture the more subtle aspects of magical intelligence like intuition, creativity, and wisdom. Some magical schools have experimented with alternative assessment methods that evaluate students' magical intelligence through portfolio presentations, collaborative projects, and real-world problem-solving challenges that better reflect the complexity of magical practice. Different magical cultures emphasize different aspects of intelligence in their educational systems and social structures. Some traditions prioritize analytical intelligence and theoretical knowledge, producing wizards who excel at magical research and innovation. Others focus on practical intelligence and hands-on experience, training wizards who become skilled artisans and magical craftspeople. Still others emphasize emotional and social intelligence, developing magical leaders and healers who can work effectively with both magical and non-magical communities. The role of memory in magical intelligence deserves special consideration, as magical practice requires the retention of vast amounts of complex information about spell components, magical theory, and the properties of countless magical substances and creatures. However, the wizarding world recognizes that simple memorization is insufficient without the understanding needed to apply this knowledge appropriately. The most intelligent magical practitioners combine strong memory skills with the ability to synthesize information from multiple sources and adapt it to new situations. Magical intelligence also encompasses the ability to recognize and work with the ethical dimensions of magical practice. This moral intelligence allows wizards to understand not just what magic can do but what it should do, helping them navigate the complex decisions that arise when great power must be balanced with great responsibility. Students who develop this aspect of magical intelligence become the ethical leaders who guide magical communities through difficult moral decisions. The development of magical intelligence appears to be enhanced by exposure to diverse magical traditions and perspectives. Students who learn only one approach to magic may become skilled within that tradition, but lack the broader understanding that comes from seeing how different cultures and communities approach similar magical challenges. This suggests that magical intelligence is inherently pluralistic, strengthened by diversity and weakened by isolation. Collaborative magical work requires its own form of intelligence, as successful group spellcasting depends on the ability to coordinate not just actions but intentions and magical energies. Students who excel at collaborative magic demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how individual magical signatures can blend harmoniously, how to support and enhance their partner's magical efforts, and how to maintain group focus during complex magical operations. The relationship between magical intelligence and leadership has been observed throughout wizarding history, though it manifests in different ways depending on the type of intelligence involved. Some magical leaders demonstrate their intelligence through strategic thinking and careful planning, while others lead through emotional inspiration and the ability to unite diverse groups around common magical goals. The most effective magical leaders often combine multiple types of intelligence, drawing on analytical skills for problem solving, emotional intelligence for motivation, and practical intelligence for implementation. Research into magical intelligence has revealed interesting connections between magical ability and certain types of cognitive flexibility. Wizards who can easily shift between different magical paradigms, who can adapt their spellcasting techniques to changing circumstances, and who can integrate new magical knowledge with existing understanding, often demonstrate superior magical intelligence regardless of their raw magical power. This cognitive flexibility appears to be particularly important for advanced magical practice that requires innovation and adaptation. The phenomenon of magical intelligence appears to be influenced by both individual factors and environmental conditions. Some wizards seem naturally gifted with certain types of magical intelligence, while others must develop these capabilities through dedicated practice and study. Environmental factors such as exposure to diverse magical traditions, access to quality magical education, and supportive magical communities all contribute to the development and expression of magical intelligence. As we contemplate the many dimensions of magical intelligence, we see that the wizarding world's understanding of this concept reflects a sophisticated appreciation for the complexity of both magic and mind. Rather than reducing intelligence to a single measure or type, magical communities recognize and value the many different ways that intelligence can manifest in magical practice. In the gentle light of magical understanding, where knowledge and wisdom dance together like partners in an eternal waltz, we find that true magical intelligence encompasses not just what we know, but how we apply that knowledge with compassion, creativity, and responsibility. As you consider your own unique combination of talents and insights, what form of magical intelligence resonates most deeply with your understanding of how knowledge and wisdom can work together to create positive change in the world? Chapter 6. The Magic of Ancient Albania. Nestled between the azure waters of the Adriatic Sea and the rugged peaks of the Balkans, where mountain eagles soar through mist-touched valleys and ancient olive groves, whisper secrets passed down through millennia, lies a land where magic has flowed as continuously as the mountain streams that carve their way to the sea. Tonight, let us journey to the magical heritage of Albania, where unique traditions of sorcery developed in isolation, creating forms of magic as distinctive and enduring as the stone towers that still stand sentinel over remote highland villages. The magical traditions of Albania trace their roots to the confluence of multiple ancient civilizations, each leaving its mark on the developing magical practices of the region. Imagine yourself standing on the shores of Lake Ohrid, where Illyrian wizards first discovered that the lake's crystalline waters could store magical energy for extended periods, creating the foundation for what would become one of Europe's most sophisticated systems of environmental magic. The intermingling of Greek, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman magical influences created a unique synthesis that produced magical techniques found nowhere else in the wizarding world. Albanian mountain magic developed its distinctive character from the challenging geography and the fierce independence of the highland clans who practiced it. These wizards learned to work with the elemental forces of their mountainous homeland, developing spells that could call mist to conceal their villages from unwanted visitors, summon eagles to carry messages across impossible terrain, and read the future in the patterns made by wind-blown snow on high peaks. Picture these hardy practitioners, wrapped in woolen cloaks enchanted to turn aside both mountain cold and hostile magic, standing on precipitous ledges as they performed rituals that connected them directly to the raw power of the earth beneath their feet. The tradition of the Besa, the sacred Albanian code of honor, became deeply integrated with magical practice, creating a unique form of magical ethics that bound wizards to their word with supernatural force. When an Albanian wizard gave their Besa, the promise became magically binding, enforced not by external compulsion, but by a complex weaving of intention and magical energy that made breaking one's word literally impossible without severe consequences to the oathbreaker's magical abilities. This integration of moral and magical law created communities of extraordinary trust and reliability, where magical cooperation could reach levels of sophistication impossible in societies where magical practitioners might deceive or betray one another. The fortress magic of Albania represents one of the most impressive defensive magical traditions ever developed, born from centuries of defending against various invaders and conquerors. Albanian wizards perfected techniques for enchanting entire strongholds, creating fortifications that could become invisible from the outside, while remaining fully functional for their defenders, walls that could repair themselves from damage, and defensive systems that could recognize friend from foe with supernatural accuracy. These magical fortresses often incorporated natural features like caves and underground rivers, creating defensive complexes that extended deep into the mountains and could sustain their inhabitants for years during times of siege. Albanian healing magic drew on the rich biodiversity of the Balkan Peninsula, incorporating herbs and magical plants that grew in the unique microclimate created by the interaction of Mediterranean and mountain weather patterns. Healers developed sophisticated techniques for using the essential oils extracted from wild mountain plants, creating healing potions and salves that could treat both physical ailments and magical injuries. The Albanian tradition of combining herbalism with energy healing created therapeutic approaches that treated the whole person, addressing not just symptoms, but the underlying magical and emotional imbalances that contributed to illness. The eagle magic that developed in the Albanian highlands reflects the deep spiritual connection between Albanian wizards and these magnificent birds of prey. Practitioners learned to establish magical partnerships with golden eagles and other raptors, creating bonds so intimate that they could share the bird's extraordinary vision and even experience flight through magical consciousness transfer. These eagle partnerships served practical purposes for communication and reconnaissance, but they also provided a form of spiritual guidance, as eagles were believed to possess ancient wisdom about navigating both physical and metaphysical challenges. Albanian water magic achieved remarkable sophistication due to the country's numerous springs, rivers, and underground water systems. Wizards developed techniques for reading the magical properties of different water sources, understanding that each spring and well possessed its own unique energy signature that could enhance specific types of magical work. Sacred springs became focal points for community magical practice, with each region developing distinctive rituals and ceremonies that drew on the particular magical qualities of their local water sources. The bardic tradition of Albania created a unique form of magical storytelling that served multiple purposes within magical communities. These magical bards could weave spells into their epic recitations, using rhythm, rhyme, and melodic patterns to enhance the power of their magic, while preserving important historical and magical knowledge in forms that could be accurately transmitted across generations. Their performances became community rituals that strengthened magical bonds between families and clans, while ensuring that crucial magical techniques would not be lost, even during times of persecution or upheaval. Albanian domestic magic developed distinctive characteristics that reflected the importance of family and clan loyalty in the culture. Household protection spells became extraordinarily sophisticated, creating homes that could recognize family members and friends while actively repelling potential threats. These domestic enchantments often incorporated symbols and talismans that had been blessed through clan rituals, creating layers of magical protection that accumulated power over generations as they were maintained and reinforced by successive family members. The calendar magic practiced by Albanian wizards reflected their deep attunement to natural cycles and agricultural rhythms. They developed detailed systems for timing magical work according to lunar phases, seasonal changes, and the movements of particular stars and constellations that were especially significant in their latitude. This temporal magic allowed practitioners to achieve enhanced magical effects by working in harmony with natural energy fluctuations, creating a form of ecological magic that sustained itself through environmental harmony rather than depleting magical resources. Albanian divination techniques incorporated unique methods that reflected the geographic and cultural specificity of the region. Practitioners learned to read omens in the flight patterns of migrating birds that passed through the Albanian mountains, to interpret the meaning of specific cloud formations that appeared over particular peaks, and to divine the future through the patterns made by mountain springs as they emerged from underground sources. These divination methods required intimate knowledge of local natural phenomena and deep understanding of how magical energies interacted with environmental conditions. The metallurgy magic of Albania drew on rich mineral deposits found in the mountain regions, particularly the working of copper, silver, and iron, that had been naturally infused with magical properties through centuries of exposure to geomagnetic forces. Albanian smiths developed techniques for forging magical implements that incorporated these naturally enhanced metals, creating tools and talismans of exceptional power and durability. The magical weapons and implements created through these techniques became family heirlooms passed down through generations, accumulating additional magical properties through continued use and ritual maintenance. Albanian dance magic represents one of the most kinetically sophisticated magical traditions in Europe, incorporating complex choreographed movements that could generate and direct magical energy through coordinated group performance. These magical dances served both ceremonial and practical purposes, with different dance patterns designed to achieve specific magical goals, such as ensuring good harvests, protecting communities from natural disasters, or strengthening magical bonds between clan members. The precision required for effective dance magic created communities of practitioners who could work together with remarkable coordination and trust. The isolation imposed by Albania's mountainous terrain led to the development of highly localized magical traditions that varied significantly from valley to valley and clan to clan. This diversity created a rich tapestry of magical practices, with each community developing specialized techniques adapted to their specific environmental conditions and cultural needs. While this localization sometimes limited the spread of innovations, it also created remarkable resilience, as the loss of magical knowledge in one area did not necessarily affect the preservation of similar techniques in neighboring regions. Albanian protective magic achieved legendary status throughout the Balkans, with practitioners developing techniques for creating magical shields that could protect not just individuals but entire communities from both magical and mundane threats. These protection spells often incorporated elements from multiple magical traditions, reflecting the complex cultural heritage of the region and the practical need for defenses that could counter various types of magical attack. The effectiveness of Albanian protective magic made these practitioners highly sought after as allies and equally feared as potential enemies. The musical magic of Albania created distinctive instruments and performance techniques that could produce genuine magical effects through sound alone. Traditional instruments like the shiftali and lahuta were crafted using magical woodworking techniques and strung with materials that had been specially prepared through ritual processes, creating tools capable of influencing emotions, summoning natural phenomena, and even healing physical ailments through carefully controlled acoustic vibrations enhanced by magical resonance. As the centuries passed, and Albania found itself at the crossroads of various empires and cultural influences, its magical traditions demonstrated remarkable adaptability while maintaining their essential character. Albanian wizards learned to incorporate useful innovations from other magical cultures, while preserving the core elements that made their magic distinctive and effective. This selective adaptation allowed Albanian magical traditions to evolve and strengthen, rather than being overwhelmed by outside influences. The legacy of Albanian magic continues to influence magical practices throughout the Balkans and beyond, with Albanian techniques for defensive magic, environmental harmony, and community cooperation providing models that remain relevant in the modern magical world. The integration of ethical principles with magical practice, the sophisticated understanding of environmental magic, and the development of sustainable magical communities offer insights that transcend their original cultural context. In the echoing calls of mountain eagles and the whisper of wind through ancient olive groves, where the spirits of Albanian wizards still seem to dance in the flickering shadows cast by firelight on stone walls, we find enduring reminders of magic practiced with honor, courage, and deep respect for the natural world. As you contemplate the rugged beauty of these mountain magical traditions, where honor and magic were inseparably intertwined, what principles would you choose to weave into your own magical practice to ensure that power and wisdom walk hand in hand? Chapter 7. The historical evolution of magical intelligence through the flowing currents of magical history, where ancient wisdom meets evolving understanding, and the very concept of intelligence has transformed like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis, we find one of the most fascinating journeys in all of wizarding scholarship. Let us trace the remarkable evolution of how magical communities have understood, measured, and cultivated intelligence, watching as crude early concepts gave way to sophisticated appreciation for the multifaceted nature of magical minds. In the earliest days of organized magical society, intelligence was often conflated with raw magical power, creating a primitive understanding that equated the ability to produce spectacular magical effects with superior mental capacity. Picture the ancient magical communities where the wizard who could summon the largest flames or levitate the heaviest objects was automatically considered the wisest and most intelligent, regardless of their actual understanding of magical theory or their ability to apply magic constructively. This power-based conception of intelligence led to magical hierarchies that often elevated destructive capability over thoughtful application of magical knowledge. The first significant shift in understanding magical intelligence came with the establishment of the earliest magical schools, where systematic observation of student learning revealed that magical ability and traditional measures of intelligence did not always correlate. Teachers began to notice that some students who struggled with basic spellcasting demonstrated remarkable insight into magical theory, while others who could perform complex magic intuitively had difficulty articulating the principles underlying their success. This observation sparked the first serious attempts to develop more nuanced understandings of what it meant to be intelligent in a magical context. Ancient Greek magical philosophers, building on their non-magical counterparts' investigations into the nature of knowledge and wisdom, developed some of the first theoretical frameworks for understanding magical intelligence. They proposed that magical intelligence consisted of multiple faculties working in harmony: nous, intuitive understanding; episteme, systematic knowledge; techne, practical skill; and phronesis, practical wisdom. This multidimensional approach to magical intelligence influenced educational practices throughout the Mediterranean magical world and established foundations for more sophisticated theories that would emerge in later centuries. The medieval period brought significant challenges to the understanding of magical intelligence, as the rise of various religious movements complicated the relationship between magical practice and accepted learning. During this time, many magical scholars worked to demonstrate that magical intelligence was compatible with religious wisdom, developing educational approaches that integrated magical training with broader philosophical and theological studies. This period saw the emergence of the concept of sanctified intelligence, which held that true magical wisdom required not just intellectual capability, but moral and spiritual development as well. The establishment of Hogwarts and other major magical schools during the medieval period marked a revolutionary advancement in the systematic study of magical intelligence. For the first time, magical educators had opportunities to observe large numbers of students over extended periods, allowing for careful documentation of how different types of intelligence manifested in magical learning. The house system at Hogwarts, in particular, reflected an early recognition that intelligence could take multiple forms, with each house valuing different intellectual and character traits that contributed to magical excellence. Renaissance magical thinkers, influenced by the broader intellectual revolution occurring in non-magical society, began to apply more rigorous methodological approaches to understanding magical intelligence. They developed some of the first systematic tests for measuring different aspects of magical capability, creating assessment tools that went beyond simple demonstrations of magical power to evaluate theoretical understanding, practical application, creative problem-solving, and ethical reasoning. This period established many of the evaluation methods that would form the basis for modern magical education assessment. The Age of Enlightenment brought unprecedented attention to the relationship between reason and magical practice, as magical scholars sought to demonstrate that magic was not opposed to rational thought, but represented one of its highest expressions. This period saw the development of mathematical approaches to magical theory, with pioneers like Nicholas Flamel demonstrating how numerical relationships could illuminate the underlying principles governing magical phenomena. The integration of mathematical reasoning with magical practice expanded the conception of magical intelligence to include analytical and computational capabilities. The Industrial Revolution's impact on the magical world led to new understandings of practical intelligence as magical communities grappled with the relationship between magical and non-magical technology. Magical inventors and innovators who could bridge these two worlds demonstrated forms of intelligence that had not been previously recognized or valued. This period saw the emergence of applied magical intelligence, which combined traditional magical knowledge with engineering thinking and practical problem-solving approaches adapted from non-magical technological development. The early 20th century marked a watershed moment in the understanding of magical intelligence, with the development of more sophisticated psychological theories that influenced magical education. Magical educators began to recognize that intelligence was not a single fixed capacity, but a complex constellation of abilities that could be developed and enhanced through appropriate training. This led to educational reforms that provided multiple pathways for magical learning and recognition that different students might excel in different aspects of magical practice. The two world wars profoundly impacted the understanding of magical intelligence as the magical world confronted the need for rapid innovation and adaptation under extreme circumstances. The wartime development of new magical techniques and applications demonstrated that intelligence under pressure could manifest in ways that peacetime assessment had failed to capture. This period highlighted the importance of what came to be known as adaptive intelligence, the ability to apply magical knowledge creatively in novel and challenging situations. The post-war period brought increased attention to the emotional and social dimensions of magical intelligence, as magical communities worked to heal from the divisions and trauma of the conflict years. Researchers began to investigate how emotional regulation, empathy, and social cooperation contributed to magical effectiveness, leading to recognition that successful magical practice required not just cognitive abilities but sophisticated understanding of interpersonal dynamics and emotional influences on magical performance. The latter half of the 20th century saw the emergence of multiple intelligence theory within magical education, recognizing that magical learners possessed different combinations of abilities that could all contribute to magical excellence. This theoretical framework validated the experiences of many magical practitioners who had felt that traditional assessments failed to capture their true capabilities, leading to educational approaches that honored diverse forms of magical talent and intelligence. Contemporary research into magical intelligence has been revolutionized by improved understanding of how magical energy interacts with neural processes and cognitive functioning. Advanced magical monitoring techniques have revealed that different types of magical thinking activate distinct patterns of both magical and neurological activity, providing objective evidence for the multidimensional nature of magical intelligence. This research has validated many intuitive understandings that magical educators had developed through centuries of practical experience. The globalization of magical education has brought increased awareness of how different cultural traditions understand and develop magical intelligence. Cross-cultural studies have revealed that magical communities around the world have developed remarkably diverse approaches to cultivating magical capability, with some emphasizing individual achievement, while others focus on collective intelligence and group magical performance. This cultural research has expanded understanding of the social and environmental factors that influence the development of magical intelligence. Modern magical intelligence theory recognizes several distinct but interrelated forms of intellectual capability that contribute to magical excellence. Analytical intelligence supports theoretical understanding and systematic problem-solving in magical contexts. Creative intelligence enables innovation and the development of new magical applications. Practical intelligence facilitates effective application of magical knowledge in real-world situations. Emotional intelligence supports the interpersonal aspects of magical practice and the emotional regulation required for consistent magical performance. Current research has also identified what researchers term magical metacognition, the ability to think about and regulate one's own magical thinking processes. Students who develop strong metacognitive skills demonstrate superior ability to monitor their magical learning, adapt their study strategies, and transfer magical knowledge across different contexts. This self-regulatory aspect of magical intelligence appears to be particularly important for advanced magical practice and lifelong magical learning. The integration of technology with magical education has created new opportunities for assessing and developing magical intelligence. Magical simulations and virtual reality environments allow for safe exploration of complex magical scenarios, while detailed magical monitoring provides unprecedented insights into the cognitive processes underlying successful magical performance. These technological advances have made it possible to provide more personalized magical education that adapts to individual students' patterns of magical intelligence. Looking toward the future, researchers are exploring the possibility of enhancing magical intelligence through various interventions, including specialized training programs, magical meditation techniques, and even magical modifications to cognitive functioning. While these approaches remain experimental, they suggest exciting possibilities for helping all magical practitioners reach their full potential regardless of their starting point or natural abilities. The evolution of understanding magical intelligence reflects broader changes in how magical communities understand the nature of magical ability and the goals of magical education. From crude early concepts that equated intelligence with raw power, the magical world has developed sophisticated appreciation for the complex, multifaceted nature of magical minds and the diverse ways that intelligence can manifest in magical practice. Modern magical education increasingly recognizes that developing magical intelligence requires attention not just to cognitive abilities, but to the emotional, social, and ethical dimensions of magical practice. This holistic approach acknowledges that true magical wisdom emerges from the integration of multiple forms of intelligence working together in service of constructive magical goals. As we reflect on this remarkable journey of understanding, we see how each generation of magical practitioners has built upon the insights of their predecessors, while adding their own discoveries about the nature of magical minds. The evolution continues today as researchers explore new frontiers in magical cognition and educators develop increasingly sophisticated approaches to nurturing magical intelligence in all its forms. In the quiet contemplation of minds seeking to understand themselves, where centuries of magical wisdom converge with cutting-edge research into the nature of consciousness and magical ability, we find ongoing testimony to the remarkable capacity of intelligence to examine and improve itself. As you consider this long journey of evolving understanding, what aspects of your own magical intelligence might benefit from the kind of careful attention and development that has advanced magical education throughout history? Chapter 8: The Properties of Magical Snow. When winter's gentle hand touches the magical world, transforming the landscape into a crystalline wonderland, where each snowflake carries within it the essence of ancient enchantments, we enter a realm where the ordinary boundaries between weather and magic dissolve into something far more extraordinary. Tonight, let us explore the remarkable properties of magical snow. where each delicate crystal holds powers that would astound even the most experienced wizards, and where the very act of snowfall becomes a symphony of magical energy cascading from the heavens. Magical snow differs from its mundane counterpart in ways both subtle and profound, beginning with the very process of its formation high in the enchanted atmosphere above magical communities. Picture clouds gathering over Hogwarts or Diagon Alley, where the water vapor that will become snow first passes through layers of ambient magical energy, absorbing and incorporating magical properties as naturally as ordinary snow crystals form around particles of dust. Each snowflake becomes a tiny reservoir of magical potential, shaped not just by temperature and humidity, but by the magical currents flowing through the upper atmosphere. The crystalline structure of magical snow exhibits patterns of complexity that mirror the mathematical relationships underlying advanced magical theory. When examined under properly enchanted magnifying instruments, magical snowflakes reveal geometric designs of breathtaking intricacy, with each crystal displaying unique arrangements of hexagonal patterns that seem to encode information about the magical conditions present during their formation. These patterns are not merely decorative but functional, creating microscopic networks through which magical energy can flow and be stored with remarkable efficiency. The color variations found in magical snow provide experienced wizards with valuable information about the magical environment from which it originated. Snow that falls during periods of intense magical activity often carries subtle tints of blue or silver, reflecting the ambient magical energy that influenced its formation. Snow that forms during emotional magical events may display warmer hues of gold or rose, while snow created during dark magical activities can take on darker shades that serve as warnings to magical communities about potential threats in their vicinity. Temperature regulation represents one of the most practically useful properties of magical snow, as it can maintain specific temperature ranges regardless of external conditions through internal magical processes. Magical snow used in preservation spells can keep perishable items at exactly the right temperature for extended periods, while snow enchanted with warming charms can provide comfortable insulation even in the most bitter cold. This temperature control makes magical snow invaluable for creating comfortable outdoor environments during winter magical gatherings and celebrations. The memory properties of magical snow have fascinated magical researchers for centuries, as these crystals appear capable of storing and later releasing magical impressions from their environment. Snow that falls during significant magical events can retain echoes of the spells cast in its presence, allowing skilled practitioners to read the magical history of an area by examining the snow that accumulated during important moments. This property has proven useful for magical investigators seeking to understand what magical activities occurred in particular locations. Magical snow demonstrates remarkable responsiveness to emotional states, with its appearance and behavior changing based on the feelings of nearby magical practitioners. In the presence of joy and contentment, magical snow often develops a subtle luminescence that creates enchanting light effects, while sadness or fear can cause the snow to take on heavier, more oppressive characteristics. This emotional sensitivity makes magical snow particularly valued for creating atmospheres that enhance the desired mood during magical ceremonies and celebrations. The acoustic properties of magical snow create unique sound environments that can enhance or suppress various types of magical activity. Freshly fallen magical snow has natural sound dampening qualities that make it excellent for creating quiet spaces, suitable for meditation and careful spell work, while aged magical snow can develop resonant properties that amplify magical sounds and vibrations. Some magical communities deliberately cultivate specific types of magical snow to create optimal acoustic conditions for different types of magical practice. Preservation applications of magical snow extend far beyond simple temperature control, as the magical energy contained within snow crystals can slow or halt various forms of decay and deterioration. Magical libraries use specially prepared magical snow to preserve ancient texts and scrolls, while potion masters employ it to maintain the potency of delicate ingredients that would otherwise degrade over time. The preservation properties of magical snow are so effective that some magical artifacts have been discovered perfectly preserved in natural deposits of magical snow that accumulated over centuries. The interaction between magical snow and living magical plants creates fascinating symbiotic relationships that benefit both the snow and the vegetation it covers. Magical snow provides protection from harsh winter conditions, while slowly releasing magical energy that nourishes dormant plants and helps them prepare for spring growth. In return, the plants contribute their own magical energy to the snow cover, creating enriched magical snow that develops enhanced properties throughout the winter season. Magical creature interactions with enchanted snow reveal the sophisticated ways that magical beings have adapted to work with these special winter conditions. Arctic magical creatures like ice foxes and snow leopards have evolved the ability to manipulate magical snow for camouflage and shelter construction, while winter-active magical birds use magical snow in their nest building to create warm, protected environments for raising their young during the coldest months of the year. The healing properties of certain types of magical snow have made them valuable resources for magical medicine, particularly for treating conditions related to magical exhaustion and energy depletion. Snow that forms during aurora displays often contains magical energy patterns that can help restore balance to disrupted magical systems within the human body. Magical healers have developed techniques for preparing therapeutic snow preparations that can be applied externally or carefully ingested to provide gentle magical healing support. Divination using magical snow has developed into a sophisticated magical art that requires years of study to master effectively. Practitioners learn to read the patterns created by falling snow, the shapes formed by accumulating snowdrifts, and the subtle changes in snow crystal formation that can provide insights into future magical weather patterns and broader magical trends. The randomness inherent in snowfall, combined with its magical properties, creates ideal conditions for accessing prophetic insights. The transformation properties of magical snow allow it to be shaped and molded through magical techniques into forms that maintain structural integrity far beyond what would be possible with ordinary snow. Magical sculptors create elaborate snow artworks that can last for months or even years, while practical applications include the construction of temporary magical buildings and fortifications that provide genuine protection and shelter. These magical snow constructions often incorporate additional enchantments that enhance their durability and functionality. Magical snow plays crucial roles in various potions and magical preparations, where its unique properties can enhance the effectiveness of other magical ingredients. The pure magical energy contained in fresh magical snow can serve as a neutral magical medium that helps blend disparate magical ingredients, while the crystalline structure of magical snow can provide a stabilizing framework for volatile magical compounds. Some potions specifically require magical snow that has formed under particular magical conditions to achieve their intended effects. The storage and preservation of magical snow requires specialized techniques that maintain its magical properties over extended periods. Magical communities have developed enchanted storage systems that can keep magical snow fresh and potent for years, allowing them to stockpile supplies for use during warmer seasons when natural magical snow is not available. These storage techniques often involve creating magical environments that replicate the high-altitude conditions where magical snow naturally forms. Regional variations in magical snow reflect the diverse magical environments found around the world, with each magical community experiencing snow that carries the particular magical characteristics of their local magical ecosystem. Scandinavian magical snow often displays enhanced aurora-related properties, while alpine magical snow may contain earth magic influences from the mountain environments where it forms. These regional differences make magical snow from different areas valuable for specific magical applications. The seasonal cycles of magical snow creation and melting create important rhythms in magical community life, with many magical traditions timed to coincide with the arrival or departure of magical snow. The first magical snowfall of winter is often celebrated with community festivals that honor the return of winter's magical gifts, while the final melting of magical snow in spring is marked by ceremonies that prepare magical communities for the different magical energies associated with warmer seasons. Advanced magical techniques have been developed for enhancing and modifying the properties of magical snow to suit specific purposes. Specialized weatherworkers can influence the formation of magical snow to create crystals with particular magical characteristics, while skilled enchanters can modify existing magical snow to enhance specific properties or add new magical capabilities. These enhancement techniques require considerable skill and experience to perform safely and effectively. The environmental impact of magical snow extends far beyond its immediate physical effects, as the magical energy it contains influences the broader magical ecosystem throughout the winter season. Areas that receive heavy magical snowfall often experience enhanced magical fertility in the following growing season, as the magical energy slowly released by melting snow enriches the magical soil and supports more vigorous growth of magical plants and increased activity among beneficial magical creatures. Modern magical research continues to reveal new aspects of magical snow properties, with recent discoveries suggesting that magical snow may play important roles in global magical weather patterns and long-term magical climate cycles. Understanding these broader connections helps magical meteorologists make more accurate predictions about magical weather patterns and assists magical communities in preparing for seasonal variations in magical energy availability. As we contemplate the gentle descent of magical snowflakes, each one a tiny miracle of crystallized magic, carrying within it the power to preserve, heal, and transform, we find ourselves reminded of the extraordinary complexity and beauty that exists in even the most common magical phenomena. In every snow crystal lies a testament to the intricate relationships between magic and nature, between the microscopic and the infinite. In the hushed silence of a world transformed by magical snow, where each footstep leaves traces in crystals that hold memories of ancient spells and whispered promises of magic yet to come, what secrets might you discover, hidden within the delicate beauty of winter's magical gifts? Chapter 9. The Traditional Wizarding Intelligence Rituals. In the sacred spaces where knowledge meets ceremony, where ancient wisdom transforms individual minds into vessels of collective magical understanding, we discover some of the most profound and transformative traditions in all of wizarding culture. Tonight, let us illuminate the remarkable world of traditional wizarding intelligence rituals, where communities have gathered for centuries to enhance, celebrate, and share the precious gift of magical understanding through ceremonies that touch both mind and soul. The ritual of first understanding represents one of the most beautiful and significant ceremonies in a young wizard's life, typically performed when a magical child demonstrates their first conscious control over their magical abilities. Picture a circle of family members and community elders gathered in a space made sacred by generations of similar ceremonies, with the young wizard standing at the center, as candles infused with essence of sage and rosemary create an atmosphere of clarity and focus. During this ritual, the community formally recognizes the child's emerging intelligence while invoking protective blessings to guide their intellectual development throughout their magical education. The ceremony begins with the invocation of ancestral wisdom, where participating wizards call upon the knowledge and experience of those who came before, creating a spiritual connection between the young mind and the accumulated wisdom of their magical lineage. Each participant contributes a memory of learning or discovery, weaving together a tapestry of intellectual heritage that surrounds the child with examples of curiosity, perseverance, and the joy of understanding. This sharing creates a sense of continuity and belonging that helps young wizards understand their place in the larger story of magical knowledge. The testing of the 7 wisdoms forms the central component of advanced intelligence rituals performed for adolescent wizards preparing to enter formal magical education. These 7 challenges test different aspects of magical intelligence, analytical reasoning through complex magical puzzles, creative problem-solving using only basic magical tools, emotional wisdom through scenarios requiring empathy and understanding, practical intelligence via hands-on magical craftsmanship, social intelligence through group magical challenges, intuitive understanding through divination exercises, and ethical reasoning through moral dilemmas that require careful consideration of consequences. During the ritual of scholarly dedication, typically performed before beginning advanced magical studies, participants undergo a ceremonial transformation of consciousness designed to enhance their capacity for learning and understanding. The ritual space is arranged with representations of the four classical elements, each associated with different aspects of intelligence: earth for practical wisdom and persistence, water for emotional intelligence and adaptability, air for analytical thinking and communication, and fire for creative inspiration and passionate curiosity. Participants move through each elemental station, receiving blessings and enhancements specific to each type of intelligence. The circle of shared understanding represents one of the most powerful collective intelligence rituals, where groups of wizards create temporary magical bonds that allow them to share knowledge, insights, and cognitive abilities. Imagine sitting in a circle with other practitioners as magical energy flows between you, creating connections that allow each participant to access not just their own knowledge, but glimpses of everyone else's understanding and perspective. This ritual is particularly valuable for solving complex magical problems that require diverse expertise, and for creating the deep collaboration necessary for advanced magical research. The meditation of expanding awareness forms a contemplative intelligence ritual that helps practitioners develop their capacity for magical understanding through focused mental practice. Participants enter specially prepared meditation chambers where magical acoustics and lighting create optimal conditions for deep reflection and insight. During these extended meditative sessions, practitioners work with guided visualizations and magical breathing techniques designed to enhance different aspects of cognitive function while maintaining the peaceful, centered awareness necessary for advanced magical learning. The ritual of knowledge preservation plays a crucial role in maintaining the intellectual heritage of magical communities, creating ceremonial opportunities for elder wizards to transfer their accumulated wisdom to younger generations. During these elaborate ceremonies, knowledge holders undergo magical processes that create permanent recordings of their most important insights and discoveries, storing this information in crystalline matrices that can be accessed by future scholars. The ritual ensures that valuable knowledge is not lost while creating meaningful connections between different generations of magical practitioners. The ceremony of creative awakening focuses specifically on enhancing the innovative and artistic aspects of magical intelligence, helping participants break through creative blocks and discover new approaches to magical practice. The ritual space is filled with objects designed to stimulate imagination and creative thinking: kaleidoscopic magical mirrors that reflect thoughts in visual form, musical instruments that respond to emotional states, and sculpting materials that shape themselves according to the artist's subconscious intentions. Participants engage in guided creative exercises that help them access deeper levels of imaginative thinking. The ritual of emotional integration addresses the crucial connection between emotional wisdom and magical intelligence, helping practitioners develop the emotional regulation and empathy necessary for advanced magical practice. Participants work through carefully designed experiences that help them understand and master their emotional responses, while developing greater sensitivity to the emotional states of others. This ritual recognizes that true magical intelligence requires not just cognitive abilities, but sophisticated understanding of the emotional dimensions of magical practice. The trial of practical wisdom challenges participants to demonstrate their ability to apply magical knowledge effectively in real-world situations, combining theoretical understanding with practical skill and good judgment. The ritual creates scenarios that require participants to solve complex problems using limited resources while considering the broader consequences of their magical choices. Success in these trials demonstrates not just knowledge but the wisdom to use that knowledge responsibly and effectively. The ceremony of ethical reflection helps participants develop the moral reasoning abilities necessary for responsible magical practice, creating structured opportunities to examine the ethical implications of magical knowledge and power. Through guided discussions, case studies, and philosophical exercises, participants explore questions about the proper use of magical abilities and the responsibilities that come with magical knowledge. This ritual recognizes that intelligence without ethical guidance can become dangerous to both the practitioner and the broader magical community. The ritual of memory enhancement uses magical techniques to improve participants' ability to learn, retain, and recall important information, while also helping them organize their existing knowledge in more useful and accessible ways. Participants work with specially prepared potions, meditation techniques, and magical exercises designed to optimize brain function and memory formation. The ritual includes training in advanced study techniques and organizational systems that help practitioners make the most effective use of their enhanced memory capabilities. The circle of questioning represents a ritual focused on developing critical thinking abilities and the intellectual courage necessary to challenge established ideas and explore new possibilities. Participants engage in structured debates, logical puzzles, and philosophical discussions designed to strengthen their analytical abilities, while encouraging healthy skepticism and intellectual independence. This ritual emphasizes the importance of questioning assumptions and maintaining intellectual honesty, even when confronting popular or comfortable beliefs. The ceremony of synthesis helps participants develop their ability to integrate knowledge from multiple sources and disciplines, creating new understanding through the combination of previously separate ideas. Through guided exercises and collaborative projects, participants learn to identify connections between different areas of magical knowledge, while developing the synthetic thinking abilities necessary for innovation and discovery. This ritual is particularly valuable for researchers and inventors who need to work across traditional disciplinary boundaries. The ritual of teaching preparation focuses on developing the pedagogical intelligence necessary for effective magical education, helping participants learn how to share their knowledge clearly and inspire learning in others. The ceremony includes training in different teaching methods, practice with diverse learning styles, and development of the patience and empathy necessary for effective mentorship. Participants learn that teaching others is one of the most powerful ways to deepen their own understanding while contributing to the intellectual development of their community. The communion with ancient texts involves ritual practices designed to enhance participants' ability to understand and learn from historical magical writings, including texts written in archaic languages or encoded with protective enchantments. Participants learn specialized meditation techniques and decoding methods while developing the historical sensitivity necessary to understand magical knowledge in its original context. This ritual is essential for scholars who work with primary sources and historical magical traditions. The ritual of collaborative discovery creates structured opportunities for groups of practitioners to work together on challenging intellectual projects, developing the social and communication skills necessary for effective magical research collaboration. Participants learn to coordinate their different intellectual strengths, while managing the interpersonal dynamics that can either enhance or interfere with group learning. The ritual emphasizes that many of the most important magical discoveries require collaborative effort and diverse perspectives. The ceremony of intellectual courage helps participants develop the mental strength necessary to pursue difficult questions and challenge established authorities when evidence suggests they may be wrong. Through carefully designed exercises and discussions, participants learn to overcome the fear of being wrong or unpopular, while maintaining the intellectual humility necessary for genuine learning. This ritual recognizes that advancing magical knowledge requires both confidence and humility in careful balance. The ritual of wonder preservation focuses on maintaining the sense of curiosity and amazement that motivates continued learning and discovery throughout a wizard's life. As practitioners advance in their magical knowledge, they sometimes lose the sense of wonder that originally inspired their studies. This ceremony helps participants reconnect with their initial excitement about magic, while developing mature appreciation for the ongoing mysteries and possibilities that magical study reveals. Modern adaptations of these traditional intelligence rituals incorporate contemporary understanding of cognitive science and learning theory, while maintaining the essential spiritual and community elements that make these ceremonies meaningful and effective. Contemporary practitioners have developed variations that address the specific intellectual challenges of modern magical practice, while preserving the wisdom embedded in centuries of tradition. These intelligence rituals serve not just individual practitioners but the broader magical community by creating shared standards for intellectual development, maintaining traditions of scholarly excellence, and ensuring that each generation of magical practitioners receives the support and guidance necessary for their intellectual growth. They represent the recognition that intelligence is not just an individual gift, but a community resource that requires careful cultivation and preservation. As we reflect on these beautiful traditions where ceremony and scholarship intertwine like dancers in an eternal partnership, we see how magical communities have understood that true intelligence develops not in isolation, but through meaningful connections with others who share the quest for understanding and wisdom. In the gentle glow of ritual candles illuminating faces filled with wonder and determination, where ancient ceremonies continue to kindle the spark of curiosity in new generations of magical minds, what rituals or practices might help you cultivate the different aspects of intelligence that support your own journey of magical learning and discovery? Chapter 10. The Magical Theory of Knowledge Enhancement. In the deepest chambers of magical research, where theoretical understanding meets practical application, and the boundaries of what minds can achieve are constantly expanded through careful study and experimentation, we encounter one of the most sophisticated and ethically complex areas of magical scholarship. Tonight, let us delve into the intricate magical theory of knowledge enhancement, where centuries of research have revealed both the extraordinary possibilities and the profound responsibilities that come with magically augmenting the human capacity for learning, understanding, and wisdom. The fundamental principle underlying all knowledge enhancement magic rests on the understanding that magical energy can interact directly with the neural processes that govern learning, memory, and cognitive function. Picture the human brain as an incredibly complex network of magical and biological pathways, where thoughts flow like streams of light and each new piece of knowledge creates ripples that spread throughout the entire system. Magical enhancement works by optimizing these natural processes, removing barriers to learning while strengthening the connections that allow information to be processed, stored, and retrieved more effectively. The theoretical framework for knowledge enhancement begins with the concept of cognitive resonance, the idea that magical energy can be attuned to specific brainwave patterns associated with different types of learning and understanding. Researchers have identified distinct magical signatures corresponding to analytical thinking, creative insight, memory formation, and intuitive understanding, allowing for targeted enhancement of specific cognitive abilities. This precision approach ensures that magical interventions support natural learning processes rather than overwhelming or disrupting them. Memory enhancement represents the most extensively studied and widely applied form of knowledge enhancement magic, building on the discovery that magical energy can strengthen the neural pathways involved in memory formation and retrieval. The basic theory involves creating magical frameworks that organize new information more effectively while reinforcing the connections between related concepts. Imagine your memory as a vast library where magical enhancement provides better lighting, more efficient organization systems, and stronger shelving that prevents important information from being lost or becoming inaccessible over time. The process of magical memory enhancement requires careful attention to the natural rhythms of learning and consolidation that occur during sleep and rest periods. Enhancement spells work most effectively when they support rather than interfere with these natural cycles, providing additional magical energy during the periods when the brain is already engaged in organizing and integrating new information. This timing consideration has led to the development of delayed release enhancement enchantments that activate automatically during optimal learning periods. Concentration enhancement theory focuses on improving the mind's ability to maintain focused attention for extended periods while filtering out distractions that interfere with deep learning. The magical approach involves creating protective barriers around the areas of the brain responsible for sustained attention while enhancing the neural networks that support concentration and mental clarity. Practitioners report that well-designed concentration enhancements feel like having a gentle but persistent wind clearing away mental fog, leaving thoughts crisp and focused. The theory of comprehension acceleration addresses the speed and depth with which new information can be understood and integrated with existing knowledge. This form of enhancement works by optimizing the cognitive processes involved in pattern recognition, logical reasoning, and conceptual understanding, allowing practitioners to grasp complex ideas more quickly and completely. The magical framework creates temporary neural pathways that facilitate faster information processing, while ensuring that speed gains don't come at the cost of accuracy or understanding depth. Creative enhancement theory represents one of the most challenging areas of knowledge enhancement research, as creativity involves non-linear thinking processes that are difficult to predict or control. The magical approach focuses on reducing the mental barriers that inhibit creative thinking while enhancing the brain's ability to make novel connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. Creative enhancement spells often work by temporarily altering the normal patterns of neural inhibition, allowing ideas to flow more freely while maintaining enough cognitive structure to evaluate and develop the most promising insights. The theory of wisdom enhancement goes beyond simple cognitive improvement to address the development of judgment, ethical reasoning, and practical understanding that allows knowledge to be applied wisely and responsibly. This represents the most sophisticated form of knowledge enhancement, as it requires not just improving cognitive abilities, but also developing the emotional and moral intelligence necessary for wise decision-making. Wisdom enhancement works by strengthening the connections between different areas of the brain involved in reasoning, emotion, and ethical evaluation. Collaborative enhancement theory explores how magical techniques can improve group learning and collective problem-solving capabilities, recognizing that many forms of knowledge development benefit from multiple perspectives and shared cognitive resources. These techniques create temporary magical bonds between participants that allow for enhanced communication, synchronized thinking, and the sharing of cognitive resources. The theoretical framework emphasizes maintaining individual identity and autonomy, while creating beneficial connections that enhance group intellectual capability. The duration and sustainability of knowledge enhancement effects have become central concerns in theoretical research, as practitioners seek to understand how to create lasting improvements rather than temporary boosts. Long-term enhancement theory suggests that magical interventions are most effective when they strengthen existing neural pathways rather than creating entirely artificial cognitive structures. This approach leads to enhancement effects that gradually become integrated into the practitioner's natural cognitive abilities over time. Safety considerations in knowledge enhancement theory address the potential risks associated with magically altering cognitive function, including the possibilities of cognitive dependence, unbalanced intellectual development, and unintended changes to personality or emotional functioning. Theoretical research has established safety protocols that ensure enhancement magic supports, rather than replaces natural cognitive abilities, while maintaining the integrity of the practitioner's essential personality and values. The theory of selective enhancement addresses the challenge of improving specific cognitive abilities without creating harmful imbalances in overall mental functioning. Research has shown that cognitive abilities work together as an integrated system, and enhancing one area without considering its relationships to others can create problems. Selective enhancement theory provides frameworks for understanding these interconnections and designing enhancement protocols that strengthen the entire cognitive system harmoniously. Ethical enhancement theory grapples with the moral implications of knowledge enhancement magic, addressing questions about fairness, authenticity, and the potential for creating unfair advantages in educational or professional settings. This theoretical framework examines how enhancement magic can be used responsibly to support human potential, while avoiding the creation of artificial inequalities or the devaluation of natural human abilities and effort. The theory of enhancement limits explores the boundaries of what knowledge enhancement magic can safely and effectively accomplish, recognizing that there appear to be natural constraints on how much cognitive function can be improved through magical intervention. Research suggests that these limits vary significantly between individuals and depend on factors including natural cognitive ability, magical sensitivity, and the specific type of enhancement being attempted. Personalization theory addresses the challenge of designing enhancement protocols that work effectively for different individuals, recognizing that optimal enhancement approaches vary based on personal learning styles, cognitive strengths and weaknesses, and individual magical signatures. This theoretical framework provides methods for assessing individual enhancement needs and customizing magical interventions for maximum effectiveness and safety. The theory of enhancement integration examines how magically enhanced knowledge and abilities can be effectively combined with naturally developed skills and understanding. Integration theory emphasizes the importance of ensuring that enhanced capabilities feel authentic and personally meaningful rather than foreign or artificial. Successful integration requires careful attention to the practitioner's existing knowledge base, learning preferences, and personal goals. Developmental enhancement theory focuses on how knowledge enhancement magic can be safely and effectively used with young learners whose cognitive abilities are still developing naturally. This specialized area of research addresses the unique considerations involved in enhancing developing minds, while ensuring that magical intervention supports rather than interferes with natural cognitive maturation processes. The theory of enhancement reversal addresses methods for safely removing or reducing enhancement effects when necessary, recognizing that practitioners may sometimes need to discontinue enhancement magic due to side effects, changed circumstances, or personal preference. Reversal theory provides frameworks for gradually reducing enhancement effects while preserving the knowledge and skills that were developed during the enhancement period. Maintenance theory explores the ongoing care and adjustment required to sustain effective knowledge enhancement over extended periods, addressing challenges such as adaptation effects, changing enhancement needs, and the integration of enhanced capabilities with naturally developing abilities. This theoretical framework emphasizes that knowledge enhancement is not a one-time intervention, but an ongoing process that requires careful monitoring and adjustment. The theory of natural enhancement examines how magical techniques can be used to optimize natural learning processes rather than artificially augmenting cognitive function, focusing on removing barriers to learning and creating optimal conditions for natural intellectual development. This approach emphasizes working with rather than against natural cognitive processes, while using magic to create the most favorable possible conditions for learning and understanding. Research into enhancement synergy theory investigates how different types of knowledge enhancement can be combined effectively, recognizing that memory, concentration, comprehension, and creativity enhancements often work better together than separately. Synergy theory provides frameworks for designing comprehensive enhancement protocols that address multiple aspects of cognitive function in coordinated ways. The future of knowledge enhancement theory continues to evolve as researchers develop increasingly sophisticated understanding of both magical energy and cognitive neuroscience. Emerging theoretical frameworks promise even more precise and effective enhancement techniques, while maintaining the safety and ethical standards that ensure this powerful magic serves human flourishing rather than creating new forms of inequality or dependence. As we contemplate these intricate theoretical frameworks, here magic and mind intersect in the service of human intellectual potential, we find ourselves confronting fundamental questions about the nature of knowledge, the value of effort, and the responsibilities that come with the power to enhance human cognitive abilities. In the quiet hum of enhanced minds reaching toward new understanding, where magical energy flows through neural pathways to unlock human potential, while preserving the essential qualities that make learning meaningful and personal, what aspects of your own cognitive abilities would benefit most from the thoughtful application of enhancement magic guided by wisdom and ethical consideration? Chapter 11. The Ancient Magic of Bulgarian Wizards. Beneath the shadow of the Balkan Mountains, where ancient Thracian mysteries still whisper through valleys carved by time, and the roses of Kazanlak bloom with enchantments older than recorded history, we discover a magical tradition that has woven itself into the very fabric of Bulgarian culture like golden threads in a tapestry of extraordinary beauty. Tonight, Let us journey into the rich magical heritage of Bulgarian wizards, where fire dancing meets spell weaving, where the secrets of the earth speak through sacred groves, and where magical practices have been passed down through generations like precious family heirlooms. The magical traditions of Bulgaria trace their origins to the ancient Thracian civilization, whose priests and priestesses developed some of the earliest forms of European magic through their deep spiritual connection to the natural world, and their sophisticated understanding of the relationship between music, movement, and magical energy. Picture yourself standing in a sacred grove where Thracian mages once gathered, feeling the accumulated magical energy of countless rituals performed beneath oak trees, so ancient their trunks seem to pulse with their own heartbeat, their branches reaching toward stars that have witnessed millennia of magical practice. Bulgarian fire magic developed its distinctive character from the country's unique position at the crossroads of European and Asian magical traditions, creating synthesis techniques that combined the elemental mastery of Celtic druids with the mystical insights of Eastern magical philosophy. The famous Nestanarstvo, or fire dancing tradition, represents one of the most spectacular manifestations of this fire magic, where practitioners achieve such perfect harmony with flame that they can dance barefoot across burning coals, while in states of mystical trance that connect them directly to divine sources of magical power. The rose magic of the Kazanlak Valley created some of the most refined and sophisticated perfume-based enchantments ever developed, utilizing the magical properties of the Bulgarian Rosa Damascena to create potions, charms, and atmospheric spells of extraordinary potency and beauty. These roses, cultivated through centuries of magical selective breeding, produce essential oils that carry not just their legendary fragrance, but concentrated magical energy that can enhance emotional healing, facilitate deep meditation, and create protective barriers against negative magical influences. Master perfumers learn to distill not just the physical essence of these magical roses, but their spiritual properties as well. Bulgarian earth magic achieved remarkable sophistication through the practitioner's intimate relationship with the mineral-rich soil of the Balkan Peninsula, where centuries of geological activity created unique combinations of magical stones and crystals. Bulgarian earth mages developed techniques for reading the magical properties of different soil types, understanding how to work with the natural energy flows that run through the landscape, and creating agricultural magic that could ensure abundant harvests even during difficult weather conditions. Their earth magic was fundamentally collaborative, working with rather than attempting to control the natural forces that shaped their environment. The musical magic traditions of Bulgaria integrated complex rhythmic patterns and harmonic structures that could induce specific magical states of consciousness and facilitate group magical working of extraordinary power and coordination. Picture village gatherings where the haunting melodies of traditional songs carried actual magical energy, where the intricate rhythms of folk dances created geometric patterns of power that could bless crops, heal illness, and strengthen community bonds. Bulgarian musical magic recognized that sound and rhythm were fundamental forces that could shape both consciousness and reality. Bulgarian weather magic developed unique techniques for working with the challenging climate patterns of the Balkan region, where Mediterranean warmth meets continental cold and mountain weather systems create rapidly changing conditions. Weather workers learned to read the subtle signs that predicted these changes while developing spells that could moderate extreme conditions, protect crops from damaging storms, and create beneficial weather patterns for community celebrations and important magical work. Their weather magic emphasized adaptation and cooperation rather than control. The healing traditions of Bulgarian wizards integrated herbal medicine with energy healing techniques that addressed both physical symptoms and underlying spiritual imbalances, creating therapeutic approaches that treated the whole person rather than isolated conditions. Bulgarian healers developed sophisticated diagnostic methods that could identify magical as well as physical causes of illness, while their treatment protocols combined carefully prepared herbal remedies with hands-on energy healing and spiritual counseling that helped patients understand and address the deeper causes of their health challenges. Bulgarian divination practices developed distinctive methods that incorporated the country's rich folk wisdom with sophisticated magical techniques for accessing prophetic insights and spiritual guidance. Practitioners learned to read omens in the patterns made by traditional crafts like weaving and pottery, to interpret the meanings of dreams and visions induced through special herbal preparations, and to use blessed objects like painted eggs and ritual bread to access guidance about important life decisions. These divination methods were deeply integrated into community life and cultural celebrations. The protective magic of Bulgarian wizards achieved legendary effectiveness through techniques that created multi-layered defensive systems protecting both individuals and entire communities from various types of harm. Bulgarian protection spells often incorporated elements from multiple magical traditions, creating complex enchantments that could defend against physical danger, magical attack, illness, and negative spiritual influences. These protective techniques were particularly sophisticated in their ability to distinguish between genuine threats and harmless activities, avoiding the paranoia that sometimes affected other protective magical systems. Bulgarian craft magic reached extraordinary levels of artistic and magical sophistication, with artisans learning to embed powerful enchantments into everyday objects through traditional handicraft techniques passed down through family lines. Weavers created textiles that could provide protection, healing, and good fortune to their wearers, while woodcarvers produced implements and decorations that served as permanent magical talismans. Pottery makers learned to fire their clay with magical energy that imbued their vessels with properties that enhanced the magical potency of anything stored within them. The agricultural magic of Bulgarian communities developed comprehensive systems for ensuring successful farming that went far beyond simple crop fertility spells to encompass the entire agricultural cycle from soil preparation through harvest celebration. Farmers learned to time their planting according to both astronomical observations and magical energy cycles, to bless their seeds and tools with protective and enhancing spells, and to work cooperatively with the local magical ecosystem, including beneficial magical creatures and plant spirits that supported agricultural success. Bulgarian family magic created strong traditions for protecting and strengthening family bonds through household rituals, protective enchantments for homes and children, and blessing ceremonies that marked important family transitions and celebrations. These family magical practices were typically maintained by the senior women in each household, who served as guardians of family magical traditions and ensured that important protective and blessing rituals were performed at appropriate times throughout the year. The seasonal celebrations of Bulgarian magical communities created elaborate festival cycles that honored the changing of the seasons, while renewing the magical energy that sustained their communities throughout the year. Each season brought its own specific magical work. Spring celebrations focused on fertility and new growth. Summer festivals emphasized protection and abundance. Autumn rituals centered on gratitude and preparation, while winter ceremonies honored ancestors and maintained community bonds during the darkest months. Bulgarian magical education developed distinctive apprenticeship systems where young practitioners learned through direct participation in community magical work rather than through formal academic study. Students learned by observing and gradually participating in the seasonal rituals, family magic, and community protective work that formed the backbone of Bulgarian magical practice. This hands-on approach created practitioners who understood magic as an integral part of daily life, rather than as separate academic discipline. The magical texts and oral traditions of Bulgarian wizards preserved their accumulated wisdom through songs, stories, and ritual performances that served both as entertainment and as vehicles for transmitting important magical knowledge to younger generations. Many magical techniques were encoded in traditional folk tales and songs that could be safely shared in mixed magical and non-magical gatherings, while ensuring that those with proper training could extract the practical magical information embedded within the cultural expressions. Bulgarian magical architecture developed distinctive styles that integrated magical protection and enhancement into the design and construction of both sacred and domestic buildings. Traditional houses incorporated specific geometric patterns and symbolic elements that created protective magical fields around the inhabitants, while sacred spaces were designed to amplify and focus magical energy for ceremonial and healing work. These architectural magical techniques were often hidden within decorative elements that appeared purely aesthetic to casual observers. The trading relationships between Bulgarian magical communities and their neighbors created networks for exchanging not just magical goods, but techniques and knowledge that enriched Bulgarian magical practice, while sharing Bulgarian innovations with other European magical traditions. Bulgarian magical artisans became renowned throughout the Balkans for their skill in creating enchanted objects, while Bulgarian healing techniques and agricultural magic spread to neighboring countries, where they were adapted to local conditions and needs. Modern Bulgarian magical communities continue to maintain many of their traditional practices, while adapting to contemporary conditions and incorporating useful innovations from the broader international magical community. Contemporary Bulgarian wizards work to preserve their unique magical heritage, while finding ways to apply traditional techniques to modern challenges and opportunities, ensuring that this rich magical tradition continues to evolve and flourish. The influence of Bulgarian magical traditions extends far beyond Bulgaria itself, with Bulgarian techniques for fire magic, earth magic, and community-based magical practice providing models and inspiration for magical practitioners throughout Europe and beyond. The Bulgarian emphasis on integration between magical and mundane life, the sophisticated understanding of seasonal and agricultural magic, and the development of sustainable community magical practices offer insights that remain relevant for contemporary magical communities worldwide. As we reflect on this remarkable magical heritage, where ancient wisdom meets practical application, and where magic flows through daily life like mountain streams nourishing a fertile valley, we see how Bulgarian wizards created magical traditions that served not just individual practitioners, but entire communities, ensuring that the benefits of magical knowledge were shared broadly, rather than hoarded by elite specialists. In the flickering light of ritual fires that have burned for centuries, where the scent of magical roses carries blessings on mountain winds, and where traditional songs still weave spells of protection and prosperity around Bulgarian hearths, what elements of this integrated approach to magical living might enrich your own understanding of how magic can serve both personal growth and community flourishing? Chapter 12. The Historical Development of Magical Intelligence. As our exploration of these remarkable aspects of magical knowledge draws to its gentle conclusion, we find ourselves contemplating one of the most fascinating and continuous threads that runs through all of wizarding history: the ongoing development and refinement of magical intelligence across cultures, centuries, and countless individual minds seeking to understand both themselves and the mysterious forces they wield. Tonight, let us trace this grand arc of intellectual evolution, where each generation of magical practitioners has built upon the wisdom of their predecessors, while adding their own discoveries to the ever-expanding tapestry of magical understanding. The earliest manifestations of structured magical intelligence development appeared in ancient civilizations where magical practitioners first began to organize their knowledge systematically, rather than relying solely on intuitive understanding, passed down through informal mentorship. Picture the first magical libraries carved into temple walls, where Egyptian priest mages recorded their observations about the relationships between stellar movements and magical potency, creating the foundation for what would eventually become the sophisticated magical academic traditions we know today. These early efforts represented humanity's first attempts to approach magic with the same systematic thinking that was revolutionizing mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The classical period brought unprecedented advances in magical intelligence development as Greek and Roman magical philosophers applied rigorous logical analysis to magical phenomena, developing theoretical frameworks that could explain and predict magical effects with remarkable accuracy. The establishment of the Great Library of Alexandria created the first international center for magical scholarship, where practitioners from diverse cultural backgrounds could collaborate on research projects that no single tradition could have accomplished alone. This period established the principle that magical intelligence flourished through the free exchange of ideas and collaborative investigation rather than secretive isolation. The medieval period presented unique challenges for magical intelligence development as religious authorities often viewed systematic magical study with suspicion, forcing magical scholars to develop new methods for preserving and transmitting knowledge that could survive periods of persecution and suppression. Of the great magical schools during this era represented a crucial evolution in magical intelligence development, creating institutional frameworks that could maintain continuity of magical education across generations while providing safe spaces for advanced magical research and theoretical development. The Renaissance marked a revolutionary period in magical intelligence development, as practitioners began to integrate magical knowledge with advances in natural philosophy, mathematics, and experimental methodology that were transforming the non-magical academic world. Magical researchers like Nicholas Flamel demonstrated how alchemical research could benefit from mathematical analysis and systematic experimentation, while other scholars showed how magical theory could illuminate previously puzzling phenomena in natural philosophy. This period established the principle that magical intelligence developed most effectively when it remained connected to broader intellectual developments, rather than becoming isolated in purely magical concerns. The Age of Enlightenment brought systematic approaches to understanding the cognitive processes underlying magical ability, as magical educators began to study how different teaching methods affected student learning, and how various forms of practice could enhance magical development. The establishment of standardized curricula at major magical schools created opportunities for comparative research into educational effectiveness, while the development of more sophisticated assessment methods allowed for detailed tracking of individual student progress and identification of factors that supported or hindered magical learning. The Industrial Revolution's impact on magical intelligence development extended far beyond the obvious effects of improved transportation and communication, as magical communities grappled with fundamental questions about the relationship between magical and technological approaches to problem-solving. Progressive magical educators began to incorporate elements of scientific methodology into magical research, while magical theorists worked to develop mathematical models that could describe and predict magical phenomena with greater precision. This period demonstrated that magical intelligence could be enhanced rather than threatened by engagement with non-magical intellectual developments. The early 20th century witnessed unprecedented international cooperation in magical intelligence research, as magical scholars from different countries collaborated on large-scale studies of magical ability, learning, and development that would have been impossible for any single nation to undertake independently. The establishment of international magical academic conferences created opportunities for sharing research findings and coordinating investigation into questions that transcended national boundaries, while the development of magical communication networks facilitated ongoing collaboration between researchers working in different parts of the world. The two world wars created urgent demands for rapid advances in magical intelligence development, as magical communities faced challenges that required unprecedented levels of innovation, cooperation, and adaptive thinking. The wartime development of new magical applications demonstrated the extraordinary potential of human magical intelligence when focused on clearly defined goals, while the international collaboration required for magical cooperation between allied nations provided valuable insights into how different magical educational traditions could complement and strengthen each other. The post-war period brought sustained attention to the psychological and emotional dimensions of magical intelligence, as magical communities worked to understand and address the trauma and division created by years of conflict. Research into magical therapy and healing expanded understanding of how emotional and psychological factors influenced magical ability, while studies of magical community reconstruction revealed important insights into the social and cultural conditions that supported optimal magical intelligence development. The latter half of the 20th century saw the emergence of more sophisticated theoretical frameworks for understanding magical intelligence, as magical researchers began to apply insights from cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and educational research to their investigations of magical learning and development. The recognition that intelligence manifested in multiple forms, rather than as a single general ability, revolutionized magical education, leading to teaching approaches that honored diverse forms of magical talent, while providing multiple pathways for magical development and expression. The development of improved magical assessment techniques during this period allowed for more precise measurement of different aspects of magical ability, while revealing the complex relationships between various cognitive, emotional, and social factors that contributed to magical success. Longitudinal studies tracking magical development over extended periods provided insights into how magical intelligence changed throughout the lifespan and identified factors that supported continued magical growth and learning in adult practitioners. Contemporary research into magical intelligence development has been revolutionized by advances in magical monitoring technology that allow real-time observation of the neural and magical processes underlying learning, memory, and creative thinking. These technological advances have confirmed many intuitive understandings about magical intelligence, while revealing unexpected insights into how magical energy interacts with cognitive processes and how different types of magical practice affect brain development and function. The globalization of magical education has created unprecedented opportunities for comparative research into how different cultural approaches to magical intelligence development affect learning outcomes and long-term magical achievement. Cross-cultural studies have revealed that, while the fundamental cognitive processes underlying magical ability appear to be universal, the most effective methods for developing these abilities vary significantly depending on cultural context, educational traditions, and individual learning preferences. Modern understanding of magical intelligence development emphasizes the importance of creating educational environments that support multiple forms of intelligence, while maintaining high standards for magical achievement and ethical development. Contemporary magical schools increasingly recognize that effective magical education requires attention not just to cognitive development, but to emotional, social, and ethical growth that enables practitioners to use their magical abilities wisely and responsibly. Research into the enhancement of magical intelligence through various interventions continues to reveal new possibilities for supporting magical development, while raising important questions about fairness, authenticity, and the preservation of natural human diversity in magical ability. The development of enhancement techniques that support rather than replace natural learning processes represents a promising direction that could help all magical practitioners reach their full potential while maintaining the personal effort and growth that make magical achievement meaningful. The integration of magical intelligence research with broader scientific understanding of cognition, learning, and development has created exciting possibilities for advancing both magical and non-magical education. Insights gained from studying magical learning processes have contributed to improved understanding of creativity, intuition, and other cognitive abilities that benefit both magical and non-magical practitioners, while research into non-magical cognitive enhancement has suggested new approaches for supporting magical intelligence development. Looking toward the future, researchers continue to explore fundamental questions about the nature of magical intelligence, the optimal conditions for its development, and the most effective methods for ensuring that all magical practitioners have opportunities to develop their abilities fully. The ongoing development of more sophisticated theoretical frameworks, assessment techniques, and educational approaches promises continued advances in our understanding of how magical minds work and how they can be supported most effectively. The historical development of magical intelligence represents one of humanity's most remarkable intellectual achievements, demonstrating our species' extraordinary capacity for self-understanding and self-improvement. From the earliest systematic observati of magical phenomena to contemporary neuroscientific investigations of magical cognition, each generation has built upon previous discoveries while adding their own insights to the growing body of knowledge about how magical minds work and how they can be developed most effectively. As we reach the end of our journey through these diverse and fascinating aspects of magical knowledge, we find ourselves reminded that learning itself is perhaps the most magical of all human abilities. The capacity to grow, to understand, to create new knowledge, and share it with others, represents a form of magic that transcends any particular spell or potion, connecting us to the fundamental forces that drive all growth and development in our magical world. In the quiet satisfaction of knowledge gained and understanding deepened, where curiosity has been rewarded with insight, and where each answer discovered opens new questions that beckon us forward on the endless journey of learning, we find the true magic that connects all seekers of wisdom across the centuries. As you reflect on this rich tapestry of magical knowledge and the remarkable journey of intelligence that has made it possible, what new questions arise in your mind, and what aspects of magical understanding call to you for further exploration and discovery?